telling the truth. But if you're exposing a voting record, I think it's quite proper. There was one ad that we used against Senator Santorum, and I only had one problem, is I couldn't get all the things in I wanted to say in 1 minute. But, you know, we mentioned no child left behind, and that he supported deficits × 5, raising the national debt, and that he voted for prescription drug programs, and as well as he voted against right to work. And I could have added, you know, things like he voted for Sarbanes-Oxley. So my only regret is that I couldn't get enough in that 1 minute that I should have.
Congressman Paul.
Hold on. Senator Santorum, you're going to get a question next, but respond, please, to Congressman Paul.
Look, Congressman Paul has been quoting sources like Crew, which is a George Soros or left-wing back organization, saying that I was corrupt. And in fact, throughout his entire ad, he quotes a lot of left-wing organizations. Well, of course, left-wing organizations say a lot of bad things about me. I would expect them, and I wear that as a badge of honor, not something that I'm ashamed of. With respect to some of the votes that he listed, I admit I'm a strong conservative, but I'm not perfect. President Bush's signature initiative was No Child Left Behind. I voted for it. I shouldn't have. It was something that I said, and I'll say publicly, that we should repeal. In fact, we should repeal all of federal government's role in primary and secondary education. And if you give me the opportunity, I'll do that.
We have a question for you right now. Sure, go ahead. Finish your thought.
And with right to work, look, I represented the state of Pennsylvania, which is which is not a right to work state. If you look at who voted for the right to work bill in the Congress, those who came from right to work states voted for it. Those who came from non-right to work states represented their states. I wasn't going to vote in Washington, D.C. to change the law in my state. I support right to work. I actually, as president, will sign and advocate for a right-to-work bill. But when I represented the people of Pennsylvania, I made the decision that I wasn't going to do in Washington and change the law in my state when my state didn't want to have that provision in their laws.
Juan Williams.
Senator Santorum, today you said Governor Romney is guilty of distorting your record, as well as of, quote, lies and hypocrisy. You said this behavior is classic Romney, and no one's holding him accountable. So the same question that Kelly asked, this time to you: should these barbed personal attacks against fellow Republicans be abandoned by the candidates?
Look, I've run a very strong and positive campaign. My ads have been positive. The only ad that I've ever put up that is contrast myself with the other candidates and does so in a way talking about issues. Governor Romney's Super PAC has put an ad out there suggesting that I voted to allow felons to be able to vote from prison because they said I'm allowing felons to vote, and they put a person in a prison jumpsuit. I would ask Governor Romney, do you believe people who are felons, who served their time, who've exhausted their parole and probation, should they be given the right to vote?
Governor Romney.
First of all, as you know, the PACs that run ads on various candidates, as we unfortunately know in this country.
I'm looking for an answer to the question first.
We have plenty of time. I'll get there. I'll do it in the order I want to do. I believe that, as you realize, that the super PACs run ads, and if they ever run an ad or say something that's not accurate, I hope they either take off the ad or make it or make it correct. I guess that you said that they said that you voted to make felons vote. Is that it?
That's correct. That's what the ad says.
And you're saying that you did.
Well, first I'm asking you to answer the question because that's how you got the time. It's actually my time. So if you can answer the question, do you believe that felons who have served their time, gone through probation and parole, exhausted their entire sentence, should they be given the right to have a vote? Now, this is Martin Luther King Day. This is a huge deal in the African-American community because we have very high rates of incarceration, disproportionately high rates, particularly with drug crimes, in the African-American community. The bill I voted on was the Martin Luther King Voting Rights Bill. And this was a provision that said particularly targeted African-Americans, and I voted to allow them to have their voting rights back once they completed their sentence.
Governor Romney, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, I don't think people who've committed violent crimes should be allowed to vote again. That's my own view.
Last thing, Senator.
Yeah, it's very interesting you should say that, Governor Romney, because in the state of Massachusetts, when you were governor, the law was that not only could violent felons vote after they exhausted their sentences, but they could vote while they were on probation and parole, which was a more liberal position than I took when I voted for the bill in the Congress. So, if in fact, let me finish. If in fact you felt so passionately about this that you are now going to go out and have somebody criticize me for restoring voting rights to people who have exhausted their sentence and served their time and paid their debt to society, then why didn't you try to change that when you were governor of Massachusetts?
Well, first of all, as governor of Massachusetts, I had an 85% Democratic legislature. This is something we discussed. My view was people who committed violent crimes should not be able to vote, even upon coming out of office. Secondly, I did not have a super PAC run an ad against you. That's, as you know, that's something which is completely out of the control of candidates. One of the things I decry in the current financial system that gets behind campaigns is that we have these voting requirements that put these super PACs in power that say things we disagree with. And I'll tell you, there have been some attacks on me. I mean, that have just been outrageous and completely inaccurate, and have been shown to be inaccurate. That's the nature of the process. I hope it ends. I hope it ends.
We have a long debate.
We have a lot of questions. What the governor said is he didn't propose anything to change that law, and what he's saying is that the ad that says that I said that, or I voted to allow felons to vote, is inaccurate, and it is inaccurate. And if I had something in the super PAC that was supporting me that was inaccurate, I would go out and say, stop it. That you're representing me and you're representing my campaign. Right. Stop it.
Governor Perry, go ahead.
Here's the issue, and this is a great example of the insiders that are having the conversation up here. And the fact of the matter is this: Washington, D.C. needs to leave the states alone and let the states decide these issues, and don't do it from Washington, D.C. That's what needs to happen.
Governor Romney, a response to either one of those?
I agree with Governor Perry. This should be decided at the state level. I also agree with Congressman Paul that a number of the positions that were described that Senator Santorum took were positions that were very different than the conservative views that he would suggest today. I think the decision on voting against a right to work was a bad decision, and was made, as he indicated, based upon the reflection of the people of the state he was representing. It's politics, if you will. In my state, I had a state that said that they did not favor my position of not letting felons who had committed violent crimes vote. I think it's a position that's reasonable, and that's the position I've got.
We may have to rethink that whole Bell thing. But we're going to take a break right here. Remember to send your thoughts on how the candidates are answering the questions via Twitter. Tweet the candidate's last name and #answer or #Dodge. Send me questions at Brett Baer. Include that #SCDebate. After the break, key issues and some more fireworks. We'll see. Stay with us.
Good evening from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, home of the world's most beautiful beaches. I'm Chad Conley, chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party. In just 5 days, South Carolina Republicans will continue the tradition of picking their party's presidential nominee. Since our state helped launch Ronald Reagan to the White House in 1980, no candidate has ever won the GOP nomination without first winning here in South Carolina. Simply put, we pick presidents. Be one of the first to get the exclusive results of our First in the South primary by texting results to 91919, or you can visit us at scgop.com. We'd love to see you here in Myrtle Beach or anywhere else in our beautiful state. And now, enjoy the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome back to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and the Republican presidential debate. We are getting questions tonight from Twitter. Governor Romney, Governor Huntsman endorsed you today, but in New Hampshire, he called you a, quote, perfectly lubricated weather vane on the important issues of the day. And just last week, Governor Huntsman charged that it's hard to find your core, which leads to our first Twitter question from @MissinDixie, quote, I want to support Mitt Romney, but considering his changing views, convince me you won't change again.
Wow. You know, the issue where I changed my mind, which obviously draws a lot of attention, was that when I was running for governor, I said I'd leave the law in place as it related to abortion. And I thought I could go on that narrow path between my personal belief and letting government stay out of the issue. And then a piece of legislation came to my desk, and it said that we would begin to create embryos for the purpose of destroying those embryos. And I said I simply couldn't sign something like that. And I penned an op-ed in the Boston Globe and said I am pro-life, described my view, and served as a pro-life governor. The Massachusetts Citizens for Life have just written a letter this last week describing my record and saying this is a solid record of a very pro-life governor. I'm proud of that record. My view on other social issues such as gay marriage, I've always opposed gay marriage. I believe that we should provide equal rights to people, regardless of their sexual orientation, but I do not believe that marriage should be between two people of the same gender. My care about getting in this race is about my belief in America and my concern that what we're seeing with this president is a change in course for America to become something we wouldn't recognize. I think he's drawing us into becoming more like a European social welfare state. I think he wants us to become an entitlement society where the people in this country feel they're all entitled to something from government and where government takes from some to give to others. I'm running to make sure that we don't transform America into something we don't recognize, but instead we restore the principles that made America the hope of the earth. I believe in free enterprise, I believe in freedom, I believe in liberty, I believe in an opportunity society, and everything I do will be designed to strengthen the values of this country, to strengthen the families of this country, to strengthen our economy, and to keep a military that is second to none in the world.
To my colleague, Juan Williams. Juan.
Governor Perry, last month the Department of Justice challenged South Carolina's new law requiring registered voters to show state-issued identification before they can vote. Governor Haley has pledged to fight the federal government all the way to the Supreme Court. You sided with the governor. Now, Governor Perry, are you suggesting on this Martin Luther King Jr. Day that the federal government has no business scrutinizing the voting laws of states where minorities were once denied the right to vote?
I'm saying that the state of Texas is under assault by federal government. I'm saying also that South Carolina is at war with this federal government and with this administration. When you look at what this Justice Department has done, not only have they taken them to task on voter ID, they've also taken them to task on their immigration law. And then the most egregious thing, obviously, is this National Labor Relations Board, where they come into a right-to-work state and tell the state of South Carolina, we're not going to let a private company come in here. That is irresponsible. I will suggest to you it's unconstitutional. And when I'm the President of the United States, the states are going to have substantially more rights to take care of their business and not be forced by the EPA or by the Justice Department, for that matter, to do things that are against the will of the people. Look, I've said that this administration is at war against organized religion. And when you look at what they've done, going after churches, because churches had that ministerial exception in there and could decide who they were going to hire at their churches. The idea that the Catholic charities cannot take money, or the federal government, this administration won't give them those dollars for sexually trafficked individuals, because this administration doesn't agree with the Catholic Church on the issue of abortion. If that's not a war on religion, I don't know what it is. And this administration is out of control.
Senator Santorum, we talked about the high unemployment rate here in South Carolina, almost 10%, well above the national average. We've talked about the skyrocketing national debt. In December, Congress authorized an additional 20 weeks of jobless benefits. Benefits being paid by the federal government in many cases because states can't afford them. Do you support extending these benefits when they expire at the end of the month? Why or why not?
Well, I think we have to look at having a reasonable time for people to be able to come back, get a job, and then turn their lives around.